you to leave your things on the chairs and stand up? Can I ask you to hold hands? Hold hands with each other. It's like unity. What words come to your mind when you see people like this?
Friendship.
Friendship. What else? Support. What else?
Peace.
Peace. Wonderful. Now, let's hold hands in a way that internet runs. How does internet run?
Something like that.
Something like that. Maybe. Maybe like this. Or maybe I'm somewhere here. Yeah, give hand with someone. Yeah, internet. Let's show how the internet runs. No. One internet. One big internet. Connect. You have to give hands. Okay. Okay. Connect. Everyone should be connected. Okay. Now every hand has to be connected to another hand. Yes, okay. We have one unconnected woman here. Oh, she wants to connect to us. Okay, good. Do you think it's possible to disconnect without unfolding the hands, without letting?
Yes, it's possible.
Is it possible?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are now not.
But it will take a lot of time.
Yeah.
Does the internet look like this? Is the internet like this?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Thank you very much, dear internet. Thank you. Okay. Internet is about connecting people, right? There were cases where someone was connected to already two hands. Sometimes we were with the back to each other. Sometimes we were face to face. But this is how internet runs, right? It's chaotic. It's disorganized. And it has the opportunity to connect everyone, right? Now, as we spoke about the importance of the multi-stakeholderism, and you came up with your own definitions of internet governance, one challenging question for everyone in the room, because you saw the internet is like so complicated, right? You saw it. Is there any particular country that is really vocal and is really influential when it comes to whatever internet is today? Let's think about a little bit. What countries are the most important, the most vocal in the global internet governance debate? And why? Let's just try to make some assumptions. Why?
Silicon Valley.
USA?
Silicon Valley.
Because of the Silicon Valley? Have you been to Silicon Valley?
Not yet.
Not yet. I like it. Not yet. Okay. Wonderful. So you'll go there. Well,
you know, the point is, the point depends on what point of view or what standing point are you talking about. Because if you're talking about internet worldwide, yes, of course, we've already mentioned USA as the country of origin. But when we're talking about, for example, economy, we should mention other countries, maybe China,
for example?
Or China is an emerging, or already emerged economy.
So I hear US, China.
But also, it's very important to point that we may talk about not internet as worldwide, but internet on the territory of every country.
Oh,
so,
okay.
In that moment, the model of internet worldwide, we should apply to a model of internet in one particular country, and then it will be difficult to outline one particular important country.
I see. Okay, I hear a point. Fair enough. Yes, please.
India, Russia, and Ukraine.
India, Russia, and Ukraine.
Because of experts, IT specialists, maybe the best in the world.
The best in the world.
They invited to the United States, to Silicon Valley, by the way. Some of them work there.
Excellent. Okay.
Many of them.
Brazil. We've seen already the Net Mundial example, driven by Brazilian government. Russia? Yeah, it was mentioned. Why Russia? Super expertise on internet policies.
So IT experts.
Sorry? Yeah, please.
Russia is a great gamer in security.
We'll talk about security and cybercrimes, and indeed, you are right. Very many cybercrimes are committed by hackers and attackers in Russia.
Might it's also worth mentioning Japan.
Japan.
Because of the state-of-the-art technologies which are developed in this country.
Okay, Japan. Yeah. Any other ideas? Any? European Union. Okay. Why is it important? Why and how it brings? Yeah, just one idea. Why is it? It definitely is important for Ukraine in terms of aspiring to adjust and accommodate the legislation that's adopted at the European Union level. But it brings so many member states, like members of the EU, who share the same principles and values.
Actually, two key countries,
yes.
USA and European Union, this two.
Oh, so everything resumes to the US and European Union. These are the two, from your perspective, the key players. Okay. No, that's fine.
Speaking about the internet as not as a whole network, but on the territory of which country, then China and North Korea.
China and North Korea.
Strict rules and prohibition.
Okay, thank you. And one last comment?
Not only countries, also non-state actors.
Non-state actors.
Like Google or Facebook.
The private companies, the big giants.
Usually it's American.
Okay. Again, so I see the tendency to kind of kick me from the discussion around the political actors who are the governments, and also going into the private. See, I mean, it's like asking about only countries would not feel that relevant because we are talking about internet being governed in a more multi-stakeholder process, or managed in a multi-stakeholder kind of environment. Fair enough. Countries you have mentioned indeed play a crucial role, and I think each and every single country plays a role in the global agenda. I think countries like Moldova, really small ones, it depends. We will talk a little bit about the ITU and what happened back in 2012, December, Dubai. So we'll get to that. But indeed, there are still very important political players who influence the overall developments of the policies around internet and how internet is affecting the lives of us, of the usual users, citizens around the globe. Monica, I know you did a lot on political actors, and there is a lot of important details that we have to be aware of so that we know how to connect different dots.
Okay.
Monica?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was interested to hear your answers just then. And before I launch into my presentation, there is one word that has popped into my mind from what you have said, and that is, of course, the concept of jurisdiction. Does everybody here understand what jurisdiction is? It is a legal term. Is there anyone that doesn't? Jurisdiction, of course, is within your state boundaries, or the boundaries of your country. You can, or the government can determine what goes on. Now, in the context of the internet, I'm going to go back just quickly to this map. You can see, of course, that the internet is a network of networks, and it's across the globe. Each state controls something within its boundaries. What does the state control? What is the state, able to control or able to regulate within its boundaries? If it can't actually control the flow of traffic, because we've seen that, but it can regulate something. Can anyone tell me what that is that the state can regulate within its boundaries? You're all looking a bit blank.
Monica, you mean outside?
No, inside
Inside
its countries to do
anything.
with the internet. The state can regulate something. Kind of. Sorry?
Everything, the content.
No, they can't regulate it, not necessarily. Maybe, but not necessarily. But what can they actually positively tell? They can tell somebody or something what it can do and what it can't do. Close. Very close. Anyone else? The internet access we had over here. It's very close. What is it that the state can tell what to do?
Cables, maybe. If we talk about
Maybe. But who owns the cables?
what?
Who owns the cables?
Maybe corporations that.
IT companies.
Yeah. I mean the companies. So I mean the companies. So I mean the broadband providers. I mean the telecoms providers. So the people that own the cables and the people that own the transmission. The government can regulate those because they have to exist somewhere. They have to have their servers in a physical place. They will have an office in a particular place. They will be registered as a company. If they're offering service to you as users, they have to be registered in some way as a business in your country to be able to do that. And that can be regulated by the law. So therefore, under that regulation, the government can then tell that company, well, you can do this, and actually you can't do this, or we'd like you to do that in this particular way. So the government can regulate the service providers. So in that respect, the government does have, under its own jurisdiction, some capability to impose regulation. So we will be coming back to that point, but I just wanted to make it now, while we're talking about the politics, because we're talking about the politics. Well, what is the government actually regulating? The government is regulating the providers and the companies. So the ISPs are the main thing that they can regulate. I do want to actually address the issue of the content platforms, because Google and Facebook has come up a couple of times. Does anybody think that the governments can do anything about Google and Facebook?
Yes.
Yes or no? Yes? No. We have two different answers here. I wonder what you're going to say by the end of this course about what they can do and what they cannot do about those companies, because those companies, of course, are based in the United States of America, but they can control.
They can control general politics of such companies, but they cannot control immediately action of such companies. What I mean,
Okay.
if some information came quickly,
Yeah.
companies cannot control it, but they can control the general politics. For example, if will Google be open in China? Will have activities in China or not?
Yeah.
It was a political discussion. But what they can present on this site, they cannot control. It's very quickly, it's made.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for that contribution. So that's just to give you the big picture perspective for what we're now about to look at, which is the politics. Now, sorry, I'm going to go back to this map again, because we had a number of countries mentioned as to who you thought were the major political actors in the internet governance in terms of states. Now, looking at this map of traffic, if you looked at that map, which states would you think were the most important? So you have the traffic here going from the United States, EU, US, actually India, interestingly. But who do you think? Great Britain? Okay, that's one answer.
It's up there. Yeah, you can see how the traffic flows.
Actually, there is a lot of traffic going through London.
Indeed.
Interestingly.
Indeed.
How much?
No, after this picture, Turkey.
Turkey. Where's Turkey? Here.
It is right there.
Well, you might think so. Okay, because it has a thicker, better bandwidth. This is.
It's Ukraine, let it be Ukraine.
Where is Ukraine?
No. Oh, to the west. To the west.
This way, somewhere here. Yeah. Okay, that's where Ukraine is. Somewhere there. What about the United States? Do you think they might have just, yes, they do. And what about the EU in general? Although we have several branches here, do you think there's a lot of traffic going into the EU? Well, it goes a lot going to London, and that's in the EU. There is, okay, what I wanted to really focus on is in terms of the politics, the two big state actors are the United States and the European Union. This is where the policy decisions are being taken that everybody else generally follows or looks to, and anything else will be an exception. Now, I know one lady did mention China. I'm going to leave China out of this discussion, actually, because China has its own regime, and it has managed to close its internet off to a large extent from the rest of the world. It has a slightly separate regime, but it doesn't really otherwise influence politically the rest of the world. It kind of does its own thing internally. It does a lot of things, but in terms of the global internet governance, I don't see it as a major player at the moment. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I see it. I see the two big actors, when you look at the policy discussions, it's the United States and the European Union that will affect us. And I just got a couple of examples here of how this works at the very highest level. We have this picture here is the United States Commerce Secretary and the EU, that's her, I think, and this one is the EU Justice Commissioner. And it's a relatively recent photograph. They came out of a discussion on the concept of data protection and safe harbour. We will talk a little bit later about exactly what safe harbour is. But what I will tell you at the moment is that safe harbour is probably the most political issue in terms of data protection regulation at the moment. It is a very hot potato, if you understand, a very difficult issue, controversial issue between the United States and the EU. And so it is being discussed at this very high level. And what comes out of that discussion is going to influence all other countries, because other countries are likely to follow the rules that are established between the United States and the EU. This other picture, well, you will recognize one of the people in that picture, but you might not recognize the other one.
Yes,
Do you? Spanish Prime Minister, absolutely. He's the former Spanish Prime Minister. And he went over to Washington at about the same time as there were discussions about a very controversial copyright law in Spain for website blocking. And it's not clear whether they actually discussed copyright, but it is known that there were side discussions between the officials from both of those countries on the topic of this Spanish copyright law. And the United States played a very significant lobbying role in getting Spain to implement this new law. So this is about United States influence on an EU member state country. So, and I just wanted to show you how it happens at a very high level as well as at the more practical levels. This is another example of how the politics works, where the EU and the United States work separately on a piece of policy, but what they decide will influence the rest of the world. And this is the policy on net neutrality. This is the Federal Communications Commission in the United States came out with an order on net neutrality that was earlier this year. And their policy will be followed around the world. The EU which is this lot here, have come up with a slightly different perspective on the same policy. But what they decide, again, is going to influence other countries, including Ukraine. Because if Ukraine is following European regulation, then Ukraine will have to follow what's being decided here. And what this picture actually is, it's the European Parliament rapporteur on a particular telecoms regulation that included something on net neutrality. That's this lady in the middle here. And the various members of the representatives of the Council of Ministers of the European Union, which is one of the other major EU institution, and also members of the European Commission. So the EU has the three institutions, the Parliament, the Council of Ministers, and the Commission. And all three of them are involved in making EU policy. And in this particular instance, they had talks between all three of them, and they came up with an agreement on a piece of legislation. It's arguably a very controversial agreement, but it is now going into law, and we will see what it actually means. But it does mean, from Ukraine's perspective, if you are going to implement a law on net neutrality in the Ukraine, you will have to follow that law. So do you think the EU is influential?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. This, we will talk again about this map. We will keep coming back to it. But what I wanted to show here is a broad division of blocks, if you like, in the world. Now, this was actually about something that went on in the ITU, the International Telecoms Union, and it shows the way countries voted. And you can just see, for the moment, I just want you to see who's voting together. So you can see, again, you can see the EU and the United States and Canada, in fact, and Australia and India all voting together, because all the red countries voted together, and all the countries in black voted together. So you have Russia, actually you have China, you have some African countries, you have Brazil, and interestingly you have Ukraine in here, all voting together. So again, if you look at this map, who do you think, or where do you think the blocks of influence are in terms of internet policy? If you looked at this map, you've got the United States and the EU together, and then you've kind of got Russia on the other side, China, and a few other countries, and Brazil on another side. So again, I would say, though, that in terms of who is followed more, you will find these are the ones that are followed, ultimately going to be followed by the rest of the world. Russia is trying to have a lot of influence, and we will be looking at that again. But the big influence, the real influence, is here. So, I now just want to look at corporate actors. I know we've had one person who's been particularly interested in them. In the telecoms sector, in the EU, the big actor is this group called ETNO. This is the European Telecoms Network Operators. Their members include Telefonica, which is the Spanish operator. Telecom Italia is the Italian one, Deutsche Telekom, and France Telecom. And they are very influential. And Telefonica and Deutsche Telekom, Telecom Italia, they operate through ETNO, and they also operate by themselves. And they have a huge amount of influence, particularly with the European Commission, in terms of policy development. On the other side, you have the United States operators. I've put AT&T here, but there are two others that are important. There's Verizon and there's Liberty Global. All three United States operators lobby in the European Union, as well as, of course, lobbying in Washington. So who do you think has the political influence? There is a lot of, if you like, a cross-flow of or cross-fertilization of influence between the United States and the European Union, and in particular with United States corporate actors coming to Brussels. I think they do that more than this lot going to Washington. These are very, very active. I actually sat next to the lobbyist from AT&T at a meeting where a European commissioner was present and heard him go on for about 10 minutes about what AT&T wanted from European law and what would AT&T would do if it didn't get it. Vodafone is also a big corporate actor in the EU, obviously on the mobile side of things, with the GSMA, the GSM Association. This is the Association of Mobile Operators throughout Europe. I didn't check whether Ukraine is a member, but somebody, Andrei, do you know if Ukraine is a member of GSMA? So this, so your mobile operators will therefore be involved with this and involved with that lobbying. Now they lobby for mobile, but increasingly that's important for internet. As everybody uses smartphones now to access internet, mobile is more important, and these people are getting very vocal about what they want on certain policies. And I've also put this one here, which is Euro-ISPA. This is the European Association of Internet Service Providers. These tend to be the smaller providers, so not the big Telefonicas, but the sort of the next level down, so things like, I think Fastweb would be a member in the UK, it would be things like Demon Internet, Virgin Media, so that the second tier, if you like, of broadband providers tend to be members of the ISP Association, and they all lobby together as Euro-ISPA, and they have a certain level of influence. They are not as powerful, I have to say, as this group. I just wanted to come back to this technical diagram again, just to show you how the politics links to the technology. So the broadband providers, again, they sit in this middle layer of the internet. And the big telecoms providers that I'm talking about, so I was talking about, where I was talking here about Etno and the likes of Telefonica, they actually own a lot of this, the bottom, the physical infrastructure, as well as running the broadband here. So do you think they are powerful? Do you think they have a lot of power? They control all this infrastructure here. They control how you send your traffic on the internet. Every time you look at any website, your traffic may well go through their networks, and it will go, it's not just being signaled, it's going right down to the wires, and then it's coming back up again on their networks. How powerful is that? They have quite a lot of influence. So if we go now on to look at the content layer. So the content layer is up the top here. And this is a chart showing a coalition of organizations that were lobbying. They were lobbying, in fact, on data protection. And it will show you who lobbies at that area. Although actually it doesn't, because a lot of them are, again, this is a coalition of coalitions, so I'm going to have to unpack it. Because we've heard somebody mention Google and Facebook earlier. Google is part of Digital Europe, probably one of the leading companies there. Facebook, I think, is in EDIMA. So, and these are coalitions of companies that have got together to lobby the EU on data protection issues. Now, why does data protection concern Google and Facebook? Because they make all of their money out of the data that we all give them every time we search for a website, or every time we go on Facebook and click a like button. They've got a piece of data about us. They make their money out of that, and they are concerned about what they're allowed to do with that data. And what they're allowed to do with that data is regulated by data protection law. So when we've said governments have no control over it, well, they do control data protection law. That is something else that they can do to exercise some control over these companies. And of course, these companies don't like it So they go and lobby the EU to try and get what they want.
Monica,
And
just maybe very quick, because you said it's a coalitions of coalitions.
Yeah, they are coalitions.
How come? I mean, why there are so many coalitions of coalitions, and all of them, are they looking at the same issues? Are they looking, lobbying for the same interests? I mean, what's the difference?
They were in this case. In case of data protection, all of them want looser rules, basically. What they don't want is the very strong rules that the EU was trying to put in place, and is still trying to put in place, actually, because, for example, the EU was suggesting a fine of up to 5% of revenue for breaching data protection law. Naturally, that's something that all of these companies wanted to fight against, because they all store data, they all use data as
and
part
would
of
have
their
to
business
pay.
model. And they could have to pay that fine if they were found to be in breach. They also would be told about how they could use the data, whether they can use anonymized data or pseudonymized data, or whether what they can do with data that is not anonymized. So in other words, data where it's still attached to your name, what you did, what they're allowed to do with all of that data, where they're allowed to store it. That's very important. So yes, they were very concerned about this. So they all got together. This is one of the biggest coalitions I've seen. But behind a lot of these people, you will find Google, Facebook, Amazon, eBay. Those are the very, very big ones that are here. And then what they do, what a lot of these lobbying companies do, when they lobby, is rather than just go in as Google, doesn't it look a lot better if I've got 200 smaller companies with me? So I'm not just Google, big bad Google, you can have a go. No, there's 200 smaller companies. They're also very concerned about this. And do you know we represent so many thousands of employees, and we bring so much revenue. And so they build this big picture, and they are no longer big bad Google. They are this Digital Europe coalition. And that's how a lot of them do it.
Packing, nicely.
They get together in groups, and then the group has a different story. So, and this is just one example of this. Interestingly, because we're talking about American and European influence, I'm just going to point out to you on this diagram, I think that's one reason why I used it here, is you see AmCham EU, that is the American Chamber of Commerce in the European Union. They were very big lobbyists on the data protection legislation. Again, they are lobbying for the American companies. Google and Facebook are behind them. AT&T chairs the committee. And it's just another way that the American business gets influence in the European Union and potentially elsewhere as well. But, and there's another one here that you might be interested in, Tech America. What was Tech America? That was another coalition of American industry that was coming over to Brussels to lobby on data protection. And I think if you look behind it, you'll probably find Google and Facebook in there somewhere too. So this is how the corporate actors get influence over laws, and it also shows you then some element of the US and the EU influencing this whole
Monica,
sector.
may I just add, if you think about the IGF, remember I was sharing with you that the IGF is built in an open, transparent manner. From the very beginning, there were these Google guys and Facebook who would push for several sessions. Like there were several sessions in the IGF forum. You would go to the room, who is in charge? Google. You open another door, Google. A session about this, Google. And because they were so monopolizing the agenda, we introduced in the MAG, we introduced the requirement that any organization cannot submit more than 3 proposals. Well, you can submit more proposals, but we will not select more than 3 proposals for Google or for Facebook or you name it, to organize 3 sessions, 3 events. Because even through such fora, they were very, very vehemently influencing and dictating and lobbying for their interests.
This is actually very interesting because if I go back to this one, I'm actually involved I'm loosely involved in an IGF what's called a dynamic coalition on the topic of net neutrality. And I get all the emails from this dynamic coalition on net neutrality, this IGF group. And it's really interesting at the moment because there is a big fight going on over the email between these guys. In fact, Telefonica and Telecom Italia are very, very active in this group in trying not just to influence the group, but to steer the way this group is going to put forward a policy proposal for net neutrality. And I don't even have time to read all the emails because they go to and fro. There are emails from Telefonica and Telecom Italia saying we must do this in the group. GSMA actually comes with them as well. And then you have the pushback from the guy who is running the group, who doesn't want to necessarily take their opinion, or he is trying to find more of a consensus between the civil society advocates like the Electronic Frontier Foundation and of course these corporate lobbyists. And they are really pushing on this. And it's very interesting. Veronica's absolutely right. They try to get into some of the civil society actions as well. And they will do this because it gives them credibility. If they can get their position into a civil society document, then they believe it gives them credibility with the policymakers. So they quite like to do that. I'm now going to go on to copyright, which is an area where you can really see the influence of the United States government and the United States industry and them working together. Does anyone know what the Special 301 report is? Has anyone come across this? Special 301? Is this a complete... don't be deceived. You do. Yeah, I was good. Don't be deceived by the name. The Special 301... Special 301 actually is to do with the particular clause which is in the United States law about this. But basically what it means is that the United States Trade Representative, which looks after, in this case it looks after copyright, or it's worldwide, or it looks after copyright for United States industries. And what it does is every year it does a survey of every country in the world in the context of copyright and alleged copyright infringements or copyright piracy. And it pulls together a report, and that is known as the Special 301 report. It comes out every year in about February. And the main inputs to this Special 301 report come from the United States entertainment industries, which are basically the Hollywood studios and the big music labels. And it will have, for each country, it says what's wrong with the copyright law, how much piracy there is in the country, in different forms of piracy, which will be online piracy and offline piracy, what are the particular problems that it perceives, and what should be done about it. And here I've just got a little quote about Ukraine. It says Ukraine is on the priority watch list. Now, listen to the language here. The United States continues to urge Ukraine to take steps to address serious concerns regarding piracy over the internet, including by adopting proposed legislation to provide an appropriate regime for notice and takedown. What do you think the United States government is trying to do here? What's your reaction to that? Do you think the United States is trying to push Ukraine to do something, to change its laws? Yes. Yes, it is. That's actually what it's saying. It wants you to do. And what, if you look at the detail here, you will find it will be telling you exactly what it thinks you should do. And it's very similar to the situation with Spain. Remember I showed that picture of the Spanish Prime Minister with Obama? Well, that was the United States telling Spain what to do. So, and that was also under Special 301, under this process of Special 301 reporting. So this is United States influence directly over other governments in relation to In this case, in relation to the internet, because it is about copyright piracy, when they talk about that, they mean downloading over the internet using BitTorrent, peer-to-peer file sharing, streaming, or any other method. But yeah.
Monica, could you go back to this? What are the cases when special reports like this one are being put in place? What's the context for such reports, for such recommendations?
This is an annual report that is put together by...
So it happens on an annual basis?
It happens on an annual basis every year. The United States Trade Representative, USTR, compiles this report and they publish the report and they survey every single country worldwide. And then what they do is the countries that they perceive are a problem. Now, problem means that there is lots of downloading of movies and music which are alleged to be copyright infringing. So you are downloading a movie, you haven't paid for it, and you are watching that movie. So
Moldova should be on on a special report.
So possibly, I don't know what, I will look for Moldova.
I'll check.
You can check. But basically that's what this report is concerned about. So it's concerned about what's happening there. But with the internet, of course, because more and more of the so-called piracy is happening over the internet, this is now affecting the internet in a big way. And the measures that the United States industries want are to block websites, and they also want action against individual users, and sometimes, so they come up with a whole string of measures that they want governments to take. And those kinds of measures will affect human rights, because the minute you start blocking content, you must have a conversation about the right to freedom of expression, which is what we will look at tomorrow. So this is quite an important issue here, and it happens in every country. So it happens. Sorry, the report covers every country worldwide. This is just a little example from the UK about music industry lobbying, how the music industry did influence the UK government. It is a letter that was obtained by me under Freedom of Information legislation, and it's to here, Lord Mandelson. Has anyone here heard of Lord Mandelson? His name's quite famous, but anyway, he was the minister at the time. And so it's the letter to the minister, basically, for business, from Lucian Grange, who is chairman of Universal Music Group. So this is a very high-level contact from the chairman of a corporation to the minister. And in his letter, he is telling the minister what he wants the law, a new law, to do. And here you can see he's asking the government to make a law asking the internet service providers to crack down on file sharers. So what we said earlier, government can regulate, it does have powers to do things over the companies that operate within its borders. And so here is the music industry saying, we know this, and this is what we want you to do. The outcome of this, again, another little advertisement for my own book, because this whole story is written up in my book. It's a bit long and complex. But you can start, what I wanted you to take from this is how corporate industry will go direct to governments and ask them for things. And it is a very good example of where civil society, if it is organised or if it is able to participate via a multi-stakeholder process, is then able to provide a different analysis of what industry wants to do and provide some balance to the government in the policy-making process. Just another quick example of how the entertainment industries lobby. This is the Motion Picture Association of America. They represent the Hollywood studios primarily. And this was some lobbying regarding the ACTA, the Anti-Counterfeiting Trade Agreement, which was this proposal to set up a kind of international copyright treaty that was actually rejected by the European Parliament, and so it has fallen by the wayside. But here the Motion Picture Association is again saying they want a regime, a secondary liability regime concerning the broadband providers. So they want the broadband providers to be liable for copyright infringement in some way. And, oh, I thought I had another slide there, but I obviously don't. Because I do have a... Anyway, so that basically is a bit of a general picture of how the corporate actors operate. So it tells you who are the important corporate actors in the telecoms field and the copyright field, and a little bit about how they operate. And now I'm going to hand back to Veronica.
This is really exciting, and this is really kind of eye-opening, because you might think that, oh, come on, Google or Facebook, or how much influence they can have. They can. And they're using whatever means they have to actually influence, because this is their profit, because the internet is the space where they make money from. And indeed, there are very, very important interests. Now, if we depart from the corporate actors and we look at the states, at the governments, I would like us to try to do a kind of role play or simulation exercise in this last part of the session, and actually position ourselves into the shoes of particular governments. So from the moment we will do it, you will have to act as if you are representatives of the United States, or you are representatives of the European Union, Council of Europe, we will have Russia, we will have Brazil. And the very moment we are clear about what our position is, we will have a topic to discuss from the perspective of the position we have as a government. Okay? We will try, but believe me, this sort of simulation exercise is extremely important, because when you are in real negotiations, this is really helpful. So remember the groups that you used to work before in the previous session. I think it's nice to keep staying in those groups. I would like to see the groups being formed back. We will need the handbook, and the topic is political actors, page 30. This is the background information we are going to work with. Okay. Page number 30. Okay. Okay. Oh, sorry. Did we find it? Page 30? Excellent. Now, I'm just going to randomly assign you a country, an actor, and then we take it from here. We have US, United States, you are here. European Union, you are here. We'll have Council of Europe, you are here. Okay, we have the next one, which is Brazil. We have Russia here. And ladies, imagine you come from Google. You are the Google company, okay? Now, may I have just a second of your attention, please? What do? You are going to have about, let's say, five minutes to look through the position of your respective actor state. Analyze it and have a conversation. Why? Because afterwards, I will throw one challenging question that you will need to make a statement on based on the position that you have as US, as EU, as Council of Europe, and so on and so forth. Is this clear? Yes. So during 5 to 7 minutes, study the information and imagine, really put yourselves in the position of those respective countries. And corporate actors. You are the corporate actors.
General.
Yes, general, because believe me, Google is following the same principles. They're actually leading.
Google is probably a good one because you are familiar with Google.
Yes, you know what it does, how it operates, and
probably have a perspective.
But look at the perspective of the corporate actors approach. let's go to each of the actors and kind of quickly reflect on the core positions. Anyone here? What are the key principles behind U.S. agenda? What is that something that U.S. strives for, dies for, is interested in? Andrei? Yeah?
Okay. First of all, United States.
You say we, the United States of America.
The president of the United States.
Yeah. Who knows, Andrei? Who knows, you know?
He cannot. He was born in Ukraine.
Okay.
Yes.
First of all, we advocate multi-stakeholder model of internet governance. Second, we should promote transition of oversight by our state of such corporation of this agency numbers, and to give opportunity for technical community to oversight it, but we don't agree to delegate our power of oversight to other international, other states or other international organizations, and we advocate for transparent and accountable processes within internet governance, and would like to support NetMundial initiative and further involve as many stakeholders as possible for discussions and open internet governance. That's our position.
So this is your position. Quite an interesting position, because when you say we are ready to commit to IANA transition, by the way, just very simple, we will talk about ICANN and domain name system. Remember, Monica was sharing about the DNS, like the domain names like .com, .biz, and this is administered and managed by ICANN, Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbering. Today, there is a global debate around transitioning this function that ICANN has and IANA has to something, to somebody. So if you go to ICANN meetings, you will hear that nice guy, the Lebanese guy, the CEO, Fadi Shehadi, saying, "It's yours. Take it. It's fine. Take it. It shouldn't. We are ready to give it, but no international, not to international organizations, not to any particular government. To whom? So we will ensure a transparent process, but to whom, how, and when? This is the debate. This is what's the debate all about. It's very tricky. It's very tricky. We will talk about ICANN in the next session, because it's one of the technical actors. However, because of ICANN, many people in the world think that U.S. has control over internet, and U.S., whenever they push the button, internet will stop, because everything is in the hands of U.S. And you've seen that, no, indeed, it's a decentralized model, so it has nothing to do with pushing the button. And however, this is an interesting thing, because you are ready, you, dear U.S., you are ready to transmit the oversight of the IANA function, but to whom? By when? Very delicate. But we are very happy you support multi-stakeholderism, and we hope you are going to be very transparent about all these processes. Thank you very much. Did we miss anything? Okay. The way about the transmission of the function of this domain name system. The transmission of the function, there were some concerns that there might be some authoritarian regimes who might take over, like we have China, we have Russia, which is why US said, no, we are not going to transmit it to any government, to any international organization. What? It's just, no, it's really, it's unbelievably interesting when you go to those meetings and you hear they say, take it, it's yours. It makes me laugh. I become hysteric. What are you talking about? I mean, you can meet for years and years and years and discuss and never come to an end. which is very convenient for US.
It's already 17 years of such process. Yeah.
See? Okay.
Can share the secrets.
He can't share the secrets. Okay. EU. Let's quickly go to EU. What's EU's position? He doesn't go? Yeah, please.
So first of all, I have to mention that while I am acting as a representative of the United Nations, of the European Union, I'm sorry, I have to say that this position is not official. This is my position, is not official position of the European Union, but I insist that the EU vision is to maintain a global model of the internet. We want, in some meaning, to limit the US influence to the internet governance.
To limit the influence.
Yeah, to limit their influence. But at the same time, we insist that this influence should not go to us. It should go to civil society. It should go to multi-stakeholders, participants. It should be civil responsibility for internet governance. And we also consider that it should be one internet, but based on pro-democracy basis. So we do not want to be, you see, the leaders, but we want to be a civil society to be a leader, not the United States and not other states, only civil society. Maybe we have a little better developed civil society in the European Union, so our representatives may play a little more active role, but all states have possibility to develop its civil society, so it's not our problem that in the US government is everywhere.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Pro-democracy, we believe in people.
Okay.
We are partners. It's the same intention.
You have the same intention. See hear what US is saying.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
They always have the same intention, what you see. They try to rule this intention.
And thank you very much. If you quickly look at what we have, indeed, European Commission has been very active, one of the key active players, both of the WSIS, and it's also a member of the Governmental Advisory Committee of ICANN. We'll talk about this. You'll see the structure of ICANN. You see where EU stands. It supports, indeed, the IGF, and we know what IGF is all about. And indeed, the vision is to maintain a global model of internet governance aligned to the principles of multi-stakeholderism, open, transparent, and one internet, pro-democracy, and all that stuff. Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you very much. So we've heard two brief positions, and we go to Council of Europe. This training is organized by Council of Europe, and you would wonder why on earth Council of Europe would want to have a training like this and take you through discussions of this kind. Council of Europe, what is your position?
Our position, we have members, the Union 47, and we are more political organization.
Oh, you're a political organization.
Yes. Not political, I mean more not only international information, virtual information. So we have two main directions. First is the protection of human rights in internet, and second direction is we have many members, there are many countries, small countries, big countries in Europe. So we responsible for diversity, for our cultural nature, also in internet. It means not only English, Russian, and Chinese languages, so it must be presented in different cultures.
So you bring in the diversity and highlight on the diversity, okay?
So, and we have strong relationship with European Development Governments, and we would like to increase the influence of such organization in Lisbon. Virtual policy.
Okay. Yeah?
And of course we are interested in protection of general human rights, protection of children, because our members not only European Union, so it can be not so rich countries, but it's necessary more information to protect such rights.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. And you've seen in your folders, if I'm not wrong, you have some guides that have been elaborated by the Council of Europe. You have the Human Rights for Internet Users Guide, which is indeed a very valuable tool, brings recommendations about a number of aspects. And as you've seen, Council of Europe has been very active in promoting several initiatives related to human rights protection online, freedom of expression, data protection, and a number of other issues. Thank you very much, Council of Europe. Thank you very much. We move to Brazil. Okay. We've seen your president this morning shining on the on the screen. Brazil, your position.
Brazil is the most motivated participant in the international internet governance debate.
Most motivated?
One of the most.
One of the most motivated. I am curious to hear why.
Because of the public frustration and some probably stolen information. So, and together with Germany, Brazil decided to sponsor a United Nations resolution. According to this resolution, human rights should be protected online and offline. So this is the main point of this resolution. The second point I would like to say is about to respect globally this resolution and these rights. And the third point I would like to underline that also it is important to protect right in the context of domestic and extraterritorial civilians. So this is also important.
Okay, okay.
So this is the reason why Brazil is one of
motivators. And indeed, the motivation of Brazil also departs from Brazil being the one which enacted the Marco Civil, the Internet, which is a historic law that can potentially serve as a model for other countries. It was during the Net Mundial last year that the president has officially launched it, and it was in a way publicly promoted. And Brazilians, you are very proud of the Marco Civil. Indeed, you are driving the Net Mundial initiative. You are promoting the multi-stakeholder approach, which is indeed very crucial and important for the global debate. Brazil, thank you very much. We move to a little bit different actor here. Russia, please.
So,
your position.
As a very influential actor in the international arena, our official policy is that we have to ensure, first of all, the security of the territory. And that's why we have gradually imposed different kind of limitation and restrictions in the field of freedom of information. First of all, it should be stressed that it is only in the aim of the ensuring of our security
of course.
Over our territory, as it is very huge. And when talking about the protection of human rights within the territory of Russia, and value the level of this protection in the connection of the protection of the security of our country, of course, we take into consideration that it is more important for us to strengthen the security. However, it is not about the legal framework of the human rights we impose within the framework of our national law, or it is not about the implementation of the international standards in this field on the territory of our country. It's only about combating international terrorism, first
Simply
of all.
like that.
Yes, and it's only about how to seek cooperation in combating this international crime at the international arena. Because as you know, nowadays it is a huge problem, and we should not be not in the limits of the cooperation in this sphere. So our first aim is to be initiative in the sphere of the protection itself and our partners and our our advisors in the field of terrorism.
Okay, okay, and you do it so actively both online and offline, and you secure the interests of your people and their freedoms in wherever they are in this world, right?
As it was imposed in the framework of the United Nations Organization, all the human rights, offline or online, are the same. That's why, as the legal framework for the protection of human rights within the territory of our country is rather wide, we are sure that in the same way we implement, even while restricting several rights of information, the rights of our users on the internet.
You know, Putin would be very happy to hear you. Thank you very much. Really well done. You got the role very well. Thank you very much. This is it. That's the position. There are always arguments for restrictions and for limitations and violations of basic human rights and freedoms. This is Russia's position. Okay, thank you. And quickly, Google. We go to Google. What does Google have as an approach?
We represent the private sector, and the private companies control networks and try to influence policy. So on Google, as it is one of the companies that owns the platforms for user-generated content. And we try to set our own political agenda to protect our business model. We are especially interested in copyright and data protection and net neutrality. So, as you see, we have a set of services like mail, like searching for information, for pictures, for videos, and Google Alerts and Google Books, etc., etc. So, we are interested in attracting more users for us and to spread our services around the world. So we are not interested in interference of governments or other actors that try to impose their rules, their principles. So we are for open, inclusive internet.
You're good guys, right? Okay, okay, good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and I hope that this exercise a little bit provoked some of the feelings that representatives of the respective countries or actors are feeling when defending their position. Now the challenging question before we go for the break. You know, unfortunately, last week we witnessed a very, very terrifying act of terrorism in Paris. Not only in Paris, we've seen a couple of days before something similar taking place in Beirut. We've seen earlier this year an unprecedented level of terrorist attacks in some of the African countries. Kenya suffered. In Paris, what happened in Paris is actually a provocation and a challenge. I personally call it the beginning of the third World War, really. I mean, with the magnitude of that scale, with the type of coordination that has been put in place, definitely not only France, but the entire EU and then the world in general is going to witness some radical changes. France president said something like this: we are going to have massive surveillance. We will install cameras everywhere, at every single corner. We will intercept the communications. We will check on every single citizen. To defend, to protect, and to ensure that there is security and stability, not only in France, but in the wider Europe. Now, you know what he said about the surveillance and the fact that they are going to impose, and they're thinking about imposing, some very restrictive measures. If I were the citizen of France and I knew that my house is being watched and I didn't do anything, you know, I just didn't do anything. I'm not a terrorist. I don't belong to a terrorist group. My phone conversation would still be intercepted, my house would still be watched, my communication and my everyday life would be still, you know, watched, spying on, if I can put it this way. Now with this is a situation, right? It's very critical. It's something that will require different solutions, and one of them I have just shared. Now as you sit in your teams, from the perspective of US, EU, Council of Europe, Brazil, Russia, corporate actor, which is Google, your immediate reflections. What would be, if you are, imagine I'm the president of France, I'm launching this in a public forum like this, what would be your immediate reaction? What would you tell me as the president of France? Hey, hold on, you know, you are, what? From the perspective of maintaining, you said we wanted multi-stakeholder base. We want a robust, open, available, accessible internet. We want internet to help improve our lives. It brings so many opportunities, and yet we've seen unprecedented levels of terrorist attacks who are well coordinated, including via the means of internet. US has been through this, 9/11. And US has been vehemently criticized for having this mass surveillance in place. Maybe it exceeded the borders because it was surveillance on other, including on political actors like your president or Brazil and Merkel and others. What do we care about? What would be your immediate reaction? I give you like one minute, and again, put yourselves in the shoes of those actors that you represent. US, EU, 1 minute. What would be your immediate reaction?